Welcome to the What If podcast with your hosts, Spencer Worth Davis and Ryan Copperrood.
I like your Stonehenge.
Thanks, dog.
I should probably say that into the microphone while we are recording because it's topical.
Yeah. Some rocks on top of some rocks.
Rocks on rocks on rocks. How stupid, dumb, big my rocks got rocks.
Yeah.
How are you, dude?
I'm good.
Tight.
Yeah. Been trying to figure out which aliens built which rock structures all day.
As in,
I think I got some good answers.
As in, are we under the impression that like the Greys built something and the little green men built something else? And
Right. The Nephilim probably built some of the taller ones because they're really tall.
Wouldn't the Nephilim have built the pyramids?
Are those the tallest?
Yes.
Yeah, then probably that.
Pyramids have to be the tallest monolith on Earth, right? Well, I don't know what would be taller than one of the pyramids. I suppose we should have known that before doing an episode about monoliths.
I don't know if they're not a monolith, though, because they're a bunch of blocks.
Well, yeah, but so Stonehenge, and it's technically considered a monolith, right?
Well, first of all, it's megalith.
Megalith.
Monolith is singular. That's one rock.
Right.
A monolith is like the thing that makes the apes smart on 2001.
I knew we were going to talk about The Space Odyssey. Hey, guys, I saw that fucking movie. You can talk shit on Twitter.
I think you've claimed that movie at least 5 different times on the show, though. That doesn't count anymore.
I mean, it counts because, A, I've fucking seen it. And B,
it counts because nothing else fucking counts.
It counts because I got to hang on to what I got. And also because due to the subject matter of our podcast, that movie comes up more frequently than many movies. I feel like it's that and like Terminator comes up. And I haven't seen Terminator.
Really?
But I have. Yeah, because we talk about like AI and robots and shit. And I feel like Terminator comes up a lot.
Well, do you want to start with Stonehenge, since we started with Stonehenge and we're talking about megaliths today?
You should...
What if you found a big pile of rocks?
You're at a Home Depot. That's what. You should tell the people about what I said when I said I like your Stonehenge, because that's a weird sentence if people don't understand.
We have a picture of Stonehenge in the studio.
Yeah.
It's a recent addition. I took a picture of it when I went there a couple years ago, and then I got it printed on a canvas, and now it hangs out on our wall, or near our wall.
Yeah. It's adjacent. It's wall adjacent.
Sitting on top of some stuff by a wall.
It's leaning against a thing that's on the wall.
It hasn't found its forever home yet.
Oh,
I know.
We should.
I got materials in the garage. I got a.
Oh yeah.
Some week where I don't know, where I don't have a bunch of other shit going on. I need to redo many things in here.
Let's do it on a Sunday and get real drunk while we do it and see what happens.
Seems like a bad idea for using power tools and designing things and hoping that things work right.
We've gotten like listener art. Now we've got some of our own art, and
right.
We're trying to what if the spot up even harder, son,
and make it like sound and look better at the same time.
It's too bad our Area 51 pictures are shitty iPhone photos. Otherwise, we could have framed one of those too.
We took some real ones.
Yeah, well, not of the gate, I guess.
Oh, right. Yeah, we were too scared.
I was too scared to point that big-ass lens out the window for fear that a bullet would travel right down it and hit me in the eye.
Yep.
So it was just cell phone photos for that one. But yeah, so you went to Stonehenge,
I did. Probably 3 years ago.
You've told your Scotland story before, I think, haven't you?
I don't know. Just the fact that I went there and
that's when you saw Stonehenge.
By myself for a week in a weird little hut.
Got
lived
real
with some
scared.
sheep.
got cursed at in Scottish accents by Scottish dudes at a bar.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't tell whether they liked you or hated you.
Yep, I think it was both.
Or both.
Yeah.
Okay,
I went to England and Scotland in, I think it was like 2015, and was mostly going to this place like along the Scottish and English border in Northumberland and hanging out in this national park for a week. But in between, I flew into London and then drove north and took a detour to go hang out at Stonehenge for a few hours.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. It's like super. Depending on when you're there, it's super touristy.
They have like a gift shop and shit, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
a full on.
And like you can't just. You have to like sort of be a part of a group. Like there's just always a bunch of people there, and they stage how many people can go out there at a time.
Oh, so it's not like a mall.
Once you get out there, you can kind of wander around freely, but
you can't like touch the stones, right? Like you can't get up close to them.
they usually have it like sort of roped off, but you can get pretty close. And then I think they sometimes do events where you can actually like go in the middle of stuff.
I just had a mental image of a dude just sort of by himself, slowly walking around, and then just out of nowhere running, and like drop kicking one of the rocks to see if he can get it to tip over and like domino the whole thing.
They weigh they weigh like many tons. I don't think you'd
Many tons, bro.
Yes.
Many tons.
And they've been there for many thousands of years.
I know,
So
but I
think they're probably good.
I like the mental image of the guy with the gumption enough to be like,
Drop kicking one.
fuck that rock. I'm gonna fuck that rock up so good. How tall are they? The tippies?
I guess that was my next point. Is like it's not as big as you would think based on photos, and it's also weird because they don't show in any photos of it that it's like 100 yards from the freeway.
Oh, that's kind of awkward.
And it just sort of like you can clearly see it from the freeway, which is just strange. If you're driving up to it, you're like, because I was very lost and driving by myself and didn't have directions and stuff. And like, I wonder if I'm, oh no, there it is.
Yeah.
I guess I get off here.
I told the story of my driving experience in Scotland. You all heard that on the podcast. I know what you're talking about. You're like, oh God, I don't know. I don't understand anything.
And at least you had like someone else with you. Did you guys have, did you have cell service when you were over there?
Yes, but only for part of it. Because once you get way up into the locks,
yeah,
it starts getting dicey.
Starts getting monstery.
Yeah, starts getting. You better hope you screenshotted your directions.
Yep,
like we did for Area 51.
Yeah, I was doing that, but by myself, which makes it a lot trickier to try and like navigate.
Because you're driving on the wrong side of the road, on the wrong side of a car with a phone that doesn't work.
And I hadn't slept in like a day and a half.
Just weeping uncontrollably. I just want to see the pile of rocks. Oh, hey, it's right there.
I feel like cool. There are a bunch of cows that just wander around. They're pretty friendly. I think they're used to people hanging out. So you hang out with the cows, see the rocks, keep it moving.
The cows probably found Stonehenge and they were like, nice when it rains. Just like, well,
I mean, you could probably only like shelter 6 or 7 cows though.
Yeah, but that one cow that got it figured out is like, fuck you guys. This is my house.
This is my house
I live
now.
at Stonehenge.
My house is 3,000 years old.
I was going to say, God, I'm such a moron. I was going to say, like, it'd be weird to live in a natural rock formation. I was like, it's not natural at all. Not natural at all.
Also, like, humans lived in caves for a long time.
What do you mean?
I thought that sentence was pretty straightforward. I'm not sure what you need clarification on.
I did understand the concept of humans living in caves. Okay. I mean, what do you mean? As in, how did that connect to me referring to Stonehenge as a natural rock formation?
You said it would be weird to live in a natural rock formation. Is that not what caves are?
I guess I was thinking like for a cow, it would be weird to live.
Oh yeah, I don't think cows lived in caves.
I don't know, man. Wild cows?
Cave cows?
Cows were wild for a while, man. You never know.
What are they going to eat in a cave? They need grass and stuff.
Other cows?
I don't think they do that.
Oh, I don't know. They do if they're hungry.
I apologize.
Oh, they're in there.
Yep.
Dun, dun, dun,
Oh,
dun,
shit.
dun.
I forgot to, well, I'll have to do it for the Patreon. I forgot to pull in those new ones that you sent me.
Of Mike? Or I mean of
Ray.
Ray, yeah.
I'm gonna do it, boys.
Yeah, you. This is not gonna make a lot of sense to you guys. Well,
if you're not one of the cool people that gets an extra episode every week for $5 a month, then no, yeah.
we'll tell you.
No, we're not gonna explain it to anybody.
I was gonna say we'll tell you where those sounds are coming from on
For just
on that
$5 a month.
Actually, so I counted the other day. We're over 30 back episodes on on the Patreon, which is pretty fucking cool. Also, thanks everybody. We're like just at almost 100 Patreons now, which is very dope. So thank you everybody for supporting on there. One of the waybacks is you put up a video of a list of all the sources of like as many of the sound drops as we've had.
I need to update that.
Yeah,
I've got some exclusive ones now too, though. So
we fancy.
Well,
fancy
ones that exist like on my computer. I'd have to upload them somewhere.
Do your curtsy.
All right, Ryan. Megaliths.
Are they trash?
Is that Rob?
Are they trash?
Yes,
it is.
He sent us a review of some potato chips today, by the way.
Oh, yep, you did, Rob. And we are gonna talk about it on the Patreon, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. I suppose Is It Trash is really mostly reserved for the Patreon.
Yeah.
Except we talked about In and Out on the Area 51 episode for a little while.
Yeah, whatever.
No, megaliths are not trash. In fact, I got really psyched when you suggested this idea for an episode. Because of all the weird stuff that we talk about, this is one of my favorite weird things or cool things.
There's so many of them.
A, there's so many.
The hell are they for?
B, they're also different. Like cultures have very different versions of megaliths.
Stonehenge is pretty basic, actually.
What do you mean? Oh, you mean compared to the vast array of megaliths that exist in the universe? Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean,
I'm going to take this one and stack it on top of that one. I made a house.
It is definitely like a very giant toddler came down and played with a block set and was
Nephilim?
like, maybe, yes.
Yeah.
And was like, I'm done playing now. Going outside.
The sun's over there once a year. Nailed it.
But also like very impressive in right. And I mean, I know what you're saying though. Like the pyramids are much more complex in their construction and their fitting and their size and just general like the magnitude of the project than Stonehenge is. But also part of why they're so not trash to me is because we've been able to do some versions of this is how it happened, or this is how they did it, or this is how they lifted this many tons rock on top of this rock.
Yeah, that's where this stuff gets interesting.
But we don't also we don't know because we can't obviously prove how any of these things were actually built or made or carved or designed.
People have some pretty good ideas for some of them.
For sure, but I just mean
like Stonehenge, they know where the rocks came from.
Right.
And it was 20 miles away, which is fucking crazy.
Fucking crazy. They dragged those stones 20 miles to put them up right here specifically. Like, that's crazy. I mean, we have ideas on how these things happen, but what I mean is we can't prove it, as in we don't have direct evidence of how things were transported or lifted on top of other things.
Right.
And, there's been recreations and attempts at explaining what technology and math might have explained things at the time. But it is very fucking fascinating to me to dive down the rabbit hole of like these very ancient people that didn't have fucking protractors. Or
we don't know.
Well, right. I mean, I guess that's what it is. Like, to our knowledge, they didn't have protractors.
They probably did.
To do what they did in the Great Pyramids, yes. Yeah. They must have had to have something. But anyway.
In conclusion.
Are they trash?
Fuck no.
Fuck no. They are not trash at all. They are fucking awesome.
Unless you have stuff to add on Stonehenge, I think people know what Stonehenge is, and you can go, there's an abundance of information available on the internet. You can go look it up. Yeah,
and I think we have other megaliths to speak of today as well.
Yes,
he says excitedly.
I've got a few lesser known, unless you spend a lot of time watching Ancient Aliens ones.
As we know you all do, because if you didn't, you wouldn't like our show.
And we have a modern megalith of sorts.
What is it? Wait, we should finish with the modern.
You want to go from oldest to newest?
Yeah, because then I can figure out where my block fits in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the oldest. Are you familiar with Göbekli Tepe?
Nope.
Is that a no? Okay.
What is a Göbekli? Johnny Göbekli.
It's an archaeological site in Turkey, and I think it means like Potbelly Hill or something.
Oh, that's cute.
It's two Turkish words that mean some sort of hill where they found this thing.
That's cute.
And on the top of this hill they found what are believed to be the world's oldest megaliths.
Ooh.
They have dated them to somewhere between 11,000 and 12,000 years old.
What?
Yeah. So for comparison, Stonehenge is 4 to 5,000 years old.
What?
So this is like more than twice as old as Stonehenge.
I bet it's not as mega, though.
Well,
Oh, shit.
there are four.
I'm about to get served.
There are four circles of these giant T-shaped stone pillars that, unlike the ones at Stonehenge, have stuff carved into them. So there are like animals and representations of people carved into the pillars.
They call those, it's a P word, a P glyph, not hieroglyph, but it's different. Go ahead.
Petroglyph?
Petroglyph, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Pterodactyglyph?
Pterodactyglyphs.
Yeah. And they're not carved into the rock. They're carved in like high relief. So everything around so say you have like a bird on the surface of one of these pillars. Mm-hmm. The bird is raised up from the rest of the pillar.
As in,
so they've carved everything else away and left this area protruding out.
Like if you're in Photoshop, you select inverse.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, except I think we can safely say they didn't have Photoshop 12,000 years ago.
Well, would you say that a chisel and a petroglyph would be the earliest version of Photoshop?
Yes.
Nice.
Some of the pillars are more than 16 feet tall.
Whoa.
Which I believe is as tall or taller than the pillars at Stonehenge. I'd have to double check that.
Yeah, let me actually double check the size of the Stonehenge pillars.
And this site wasn't discovered, at least in modern times, until the 90s by a German gentleman named Klaus Schmidt, who's now, I believe, still excavating the site because the site is roughly 1,000 by 1,000 feet square.
Okay, whoa.
Which I'm guessing has got to be bigger than Stonehenge.
Yeah, Stonehenge. Well, the tallest stone at Stonehenge is 30 feet tall.
Oh, shit. Okay. I don't think the site is super big, though. I would guess it's only like...
Except, isn't there like a
couple 100 feet in each direction, maybe.
But isn't there like an unseen... Didn't they do some sort of like radar investigation? There was like wood poles that were even further around the Stonehenge site?
And they've excavated lots of different things from lots of different areas around there. And there are a lot of theories about when it was built and over how long of a period, and if there were other structures there prior to what's there now.
Right.
Or if there were some natural formations there that people then added to.
Built upon, right.
Yeah. They found a lot of human and animal bones there over the years.
At
Stonehenge.
At Stonehenge, okay.
And so the dating and like what it was actually part of which era of construction there, I'm not super sure of.
Yeah,
but
got it.
So anyway, at Göbekli Tepe, it's this huge area, and it's still being excavated, and they've only excavated about 5% of it so far, and they've done sort of the same thing with, I don't know if it's actually ground penetrating radar or if it's laser mapping of some kind.
Right.
They based on what they have excavated and what they've mapped still underground, because when they discovered it, almost the entire thing was buried. They estimate that they've only excavated like 5 to 10% of the total of what's there.
Okay. That was kind of going to be my question when you were like, hadn't been discovered until the 90s. I was like, did nobody go, hey, what's that big rock on the hill?
Yeah, it was buried.
Got it. Yeah. That would explain that.
Schmidt, the main dude who discovered it and who has been working to excavate it and studying it, has some pretty interesting theories about what it was used for, and believes ultimately it was a religious site, and that people would come there to worship in ancient times.
Got it.
And that people would travel from far distances to specifically visit this site. But he also thinks that it's probably was a central location for what he calls a cult of the dead. And that the carved animals and giant stylized humans on the pillars are protectors of the dead and of the souls that are there.
Sounds familiar for a story I'll tell later.
However, they haven't actually found any tombs or graves on site.
Okay.
So he's they haven't found people buried there.
Yeah.
But they've found bones and they've found human skulls that have like incisions in them. So he thinks it may have been some sort of weird
Sacrifice?
Yeah, or some sort of religious rituals involving human parts, which I guess you could, it's pretty closely related to sacrifice. He gave it a really badass name, though, which was a Neolithic skull cult.
Yo.
Add it to the list.
Band name! Oh, God.
Neolithic skull cult.
Dude, I want a listener to go back through all 100 plus episodes of the show we've done and just pull all
Put together
the times
the first
we've
What If
said
festival.
300 bands at Coachella, and it's all fake fucking band names.
Headlined by Neolithic skull cult.
God, that is a pretty fucking hardcore name.
Yeah, dude.
I dig.
Yeah. So that place, I mean, with a lot of these, like the most fascinating part of these is looking at them. Mm-hmm. So I'll post photos on the website, on the show notes and stuff. But that one especially, like it's from 11 to 12,000 BC. So like minimum 12,000 years old, probably more. 13, 14. And you're quarrying rock. Transporting it. Carving it.
Lifting it?
Erecting it somehow. You're designing this whole thing. You're aligning all of it. You're traveling there. Like, there's so much effort over, I'm assuming, a pretty long period of time.
For sure.
In an
area, it's up a hill?
Yeah. And an area, or in a era where, like, people weren't even farming yet.
Yeah.
So at a time where we were still on a daily basis, allegedly, gathering food and like just trying to survive.
You're like, no. This is what we're doing today.
Not just today, for your generation and then the next one and maybe the one after that.
Yeah.
For the next 100 years, we're building this thing here so we can cut people's heads off.
It's very important.
Yeah, your job for the next 60 years is to carve jaguars into shit.
You're like, well, better sit down. Better sit down.
And somehow we have food for you every day? Or like, I just don't understand the logistics of how that would have worked.
Yeah, I mean,
people weren't even building communities yet, as I think.
Yeah,
unless we're just wrong about all that shit.
I guess, they're saying like agriculture started 9,000 BC, so that would be like...
This is dated 2,000 to 3,000 years before that, though.
Yeah, what the fuck, man?
Right.
I'm gonna go hunt down that fucking, like, big-ass, I don't know, where was this, Turkey?
Yeah.
I don't know, some big-ass, like, fucking bison or something like that, and then, like... eat that.
Thank you for not making me guess which animals are.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, someone's gonna fucking ruin me on Twitter for that.
Parrots. I think they hunt parrots.
Big parrots, very meaty parrots. The parrots that were the size of the rocks they were fucking quarrying.
I would have had no idea.
I don't think it's bison. I think that's like maybe a traditionally North American animal, but I don't fucking know.
I think you're right.
Let's say
lemurs.
Woolly mammoths.
Lemurs.
Big lemurs.
Turkish lemurs.
I just imagine for some reason that 12,000 years ago they had all of our same animals, but fucking way bigger.
Well, that was like the Pangea, right? Everything was still connected back then.
Yeah. Perfect.
So it was just like tamarins and bison and
dinosaurs. So they're hunting their T-Rexes.
Yeah.
But no, I think you're right. Like the idea that somehow this was a priority of the people at the time is kind of fucking mind-blowing. And not just a priority, but almost like a way of life to execute on a thing like this.
And it, as far as what we can deduce from what else was happening at the time, like shouldn't have even really been possible.
Yeah.
Just on like how did you stay alive long enough in one location to do this? Much less any of the knowledge required to actually build it.
Right. Right.
Like, were you gathering and storing grain? Because you guys were then the first, as far as we know.
Sure.
Were you domesticating animals? Because then you guys would have been the first, as far as we know.
Were there like just incredibly like lush forests and jungles with abundant natural fruit and veg that you
or you just had people
harvested
dedicated
all
to
the time?
Yeah. Or you had 20 people dedicated to just hunting
Right.
all day, every day, and
Right.
sharing with the group.
Right. And in the meantime, like,
You carve jaguars.
hey, you're on Jaguar duty and you're on Jaguar duty.
And you start bench pressing because we have some 5,000-ton rocks that we need moved.
How are we gonna get it up there?
Pounds.
You are gonna get it up there. That's how.
Steve and Jim, you guys are moving that one.
Can I carve the Jaguars? No.
And then you're doing it again tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow until you die, and then your kids are doing it.
I was just gonna say, and also have more kids because we need
Yes.
them to do it too.
We haven't invented rope yet. Sorry.
You're gonna have to use your hair. Grow your hair faster, Steve. Grow your hair faster.
When do you think rope was invented? Let's guess.
I bet you we have evidence of rope from God. I mean, it's got to go way back, right? Like rope didn't come that far after sharpened instruments.
I don't know. Let's find out together
God.
and sound dumb while we do it.
All we do is make bad guesses and sound real dumb.
I'm
in the
going to
process.
say we've had rope for 20,000 years.
I mean, how far back do we have evidence of like human tools? We talked about this on an episode not that long ago, didn't we?
Yeah, but the answer we found was that primates were making tools millions of years ago, pre-humans.
That's true. Like
There are stone tools from like 2 million years ago that
Yeah.
obviously weren't humans because we didn't exist yet. But our ancestors were chipping rocks and hitting each other with them.
I feel like rope would be a hard one too, though, because
It's not going to survive very long.
Yeah, right. It's not made out of anything that would.
You're stalling. Take a guess.
You said 20.
Yep.
I'm gonna say 60,000 years ago. We have evidence of like coiled rope or something.
Okay. According to Wikipedia, the Wikipedia entry for rope,
Strong, strong.
the ancient Egyptians were probably the first civilization to develop special tools to make rope. Egyptian rope dates back to 4000 BC. That doesn't seem old enough.
No, it doesn't. But also, I'm fucking stupid. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Steve may have been building pillars to the monkey gods pre-rope.
I mean, when we get to, I'll spoiler alert. I'm going to talk about Easter Island later, and the Easter Island stuff.
The history of rope.
Oh, sweet. What if rope?
Shit. Okay, here we go. Impressions of cordage found on fired clay provide evidence of string and rope making technology in Europe dating back at least 28,000 years.
Okay, nice. So kind of in between the two of us. All right.
That was actually a pretty good guess.
Hey, teamwork, Rob. We're getting better at being less dumb.
Fossilized fragments of two-ply rope were found in caves in, I don't know, dating to approximately 15,000 BC.
Didn't even try.
Yeah, well, it's a cave.
I don't know.
It was a cow cave. Okay, so at least 28,000. So at least 38. Math. We've had rope for at least 30,000 years.
Okay. I mean,
Maybe longer, though, because we were required, we needed rope fossils to figure out that we had rope 30,000 years ago.
I mean, it's the only way you're going to know that it's real, right?
Well, that's my question with a lot of the megalith stuff. How do we know that there weren't a bunch of other artifacts at these sites or at other old sites that just didn't survive
disappeared
for
over time?
12,000 years?
I'm sure that is the case, right? I mean, we know.
It has to be.
Yeah. I mean,
So then how much do we just not know about those cultures and how advanced they may have been?
I guess we would. I mean, again, I don't know, but I would imagine what they do is go if you cast a wide enough net, I would imagine that you have some sense of a like representative sampling of things that are probably there. You know, if you find a piece of rope over here and a piece of rope over there,
But
then
I'm
you
saying
go,
none of that stuff would have made it from 12,000 BC.
You're saying stuff that there's just zero evidence of?
Maybe they had calculators and filing cabinets and stuff, but they wouldn't last 14,000 years.
I mean, if a piece of 2-ply rope is going to last, a filing cabinet would.
But the oldest rope that we've actually found is only like 2,000 years. We had to find fossils of rope for older stuff. And Göbekli Tepe is 14,000 years old.
Yeah, man. I mean, well, and that's the other thing, too, when they're like, oh, we only found a head. It's like, well, yeah, but like 14,000 years of the Earth moving and changing, and like maybe there were full bodies there. Maybe there weren't. Like,
yeah, well, they're not going to decompose at different rates. If you're finding bones, they would have had to be separated somehow. And the whole site obviously hasn't been disturbed because the structures are more or less intact.
That's true.
They've been buried. But like, I don't know. None of this stuff in this room would be here if we walked away for 14,000 years and came back. My house would be gone.
Hell no.
These microphones would be gone. Any record of us ever recording this shit would be gone. I mean, what, like...
I mean, it will live on in all of your hearts.
But think about that when we, like, you know, we store everything on hard drives, basically.
Right.
No, that shit... A hard drive is rated to last, like, what, 30 years at best?
Oh, yeah.
And in a couple hundred years, there will be no evidence that it ever even existed.
Oh, yeah.
Even plastics and stuff are only going to last, like, a couple thousand.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
But I'm saying, like, even the stuff that we worry about, like, it's never going to decompose, it's so horrible for the environment, even that stuff is only going to last a couple thousand years.
Right. So multiply that by 7.
Any organic material is long gone. Any metals are probably back to whatever
they started as.
Yeah. Especially if they're exposed to anything.
So what you're saying is the reason we're not finding the spaceships is because the spaceships have deteriorated.
No, but just I think we vastly underestimate what ancient people were capable of, because the only stuff we have a record of
is the stuff
is
that
the most
lasts
basic.
14,000
Yeah,
years.
is the stone tools, because everything else would be gone.
And the 50-ton rocks.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like we were talking about with the is it Norway that's trying to store the radioactive material for 100,000 years?
Yeah, what's that documentary that we talked about?
Into Eternity?
Yes.
They're trying to figure out a way to store material that's going to be radioactive for the next 100,000 years, and how do you communicate with people 100,000 years into the future to not dig up this big, important-looking thing and kill themselves? And they were getting back to, like, you'd have to build something out of stone that hopefully looks scary.
Right.
Because any structure you build is going to be gone.
Yeah.
Language isn't going to... I mean, the oldest languages we have are, like, what, 5 to 10,000 years old, maybe?
I don't know. We got jaguars from fucking 15,000 years ago.
But that's not language.
Well, no. I mean,
That's a carving in a rock of...
It's pterodactyl glyphs.
But I'm saying, like...
Boom.
Maybe they were more advanced. I mean, obviously they were based on some of the stuff that they built. There's just no record of how they did or what they were thinking about when they did it. Or
for sure. I mean, and this gets back to, and we can talk more about this later once I like that we were like, we'll go from oldest to newest, and we've just been talking about the oldest one this whole time.
Because it's fucking crazy.
It is crazy. But like, we talked a little bit about the kind of how they did it stuff. And you see those Nat Geo videos where they did a recreation using, quote, only the tools they had at the time. And I think the thing that's always faulty about that to me is they never really do it with, they never really do it with like the same sized piece of something. They're like, we're going to demonstrate smaller. And
well, yeah, because we have a budget of 20 grand to make this show, and it's due on Friday.
Right. So they do it kind of in a more refined size. And then also, there's no way that our modern knowledge and technology didn't go into the, quote, recreation. So I always feel like it's an inadequate explanation for me of how it was accomplished.
Yeah. I mean, it is purely for entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hypothesis.
Yeah. I want to run through a couple other, like, real weird ones real quick before we... Well, when does yours fit into this timeline? I don't actually know.
Like 1000 AD-ish, 800 AD.
Oh, really? They're that new? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we got a ways to go then.
Okay.
Are you
Keep it going. Let's get weird.
Are you familiar with Mada'in Saleh?
Bro, you be saying these words.
Google this real quick.
Okay.
I need you to see the pictures while I'm talking
Good.
about it.
Googly moogly.
Mada'in
MADAIN
space
space
SALEH.
Google got it after
Got
it.
it.
Yep.
Okay. This is a site that's
Damn.
this is a site that's in present-day Saudi Arabia, so the northeast corner of Saudi Arabia.
Fuck off. Is this real?
Yeah, dude.
Are you sure?
Yes.
This is not Photoshop.
Just show me the picture you're looking at. Yep, that's real. They are these.
What the fuck?
Yeah, they're these giant.
Pull over right now, safely. Use your blinker. Use your blinker.
They are tombs carved into these giant slabs of rock, usually with a single opening into it, but then this super elaborate facade around it full of like really sharp angles and corners.
Bruh.
And the design and the architecture of these is insane. And they were built at least 2,000 years ago.
Damn, son.
And again, the visual is important. So if you scroll down, there's a photo of a few of these. But there are
Whatifpodcast.com.
Or this one I'm just going to put like in the actual RSS description so y'all can see it easily.
Oh, yeah, in your preferred podcast app.
See. But there are like a couple hundred of these. And
I was going to say, I'm seeing tons of different pictures of this like same concept.
The architecture and the design and like, I think they're just carved like into a hill of rock. I think it's one piece of rock essentially that all of this is carved out of. And they look like, I mean, if you saw this architecture today, it would be impressive.
It's like there are many different like rock facades. Like they look like they're standalone rocks and like almost like rocky mountainous
they have
hills.
Like windows cut into them. They're window facades.
Yeah.
And pillars and decorative borders on all of it. Like there's no way that there wasn't, from multiple angles, like the design would have required a ton of knowledge.
Yes.
The execution would have required a ton of knowledge.
They're extremely geometric.
Yeah.
And like that's the reason I said to you, is this Photoshop? Is because it looks like one of those photos where somebody superimposed like a modern building facade into nature.
Yeah. It would have required way more advanced tools than we thought people had 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. I mean, you're cutting circular pillars, but also perfectly rectangular windows, but also decorative, like floral edging on the stuff. And then the scale is insane. Like some of these are, I don't know, 100 feet tall or more.
I mean, they look fucking huge because if any of the doorways are...
There are people for scale in a few of them.
People sized?
Yeah.
They're 10 times taller than the initial door.
Right.
Like...
So did they also have... Yeah.
Like that's fucking monstrous. That's got to be at least 100 feet tall, if not more.
How were they even physically building these? Did they have like... What was the mechanism for doing this? You would have had to have...
We got to be talking about like insane scaffolding setups.
Right.
But the other thing too that's fucking wild is like, sorry guys, this is a little visual, but these are deep into some of these rock facades, like 15 and 20 and maybe like 30 feet in.
If we were going to build that now, you would rely heavily on explosives.
Yeah,
I'm
I was
assuming.
literally just going to say you'd have to blow up the first probably 3 layers just to get to how deep some of these are carved into.
Or you'd need some serious, you'd need some serious power tools at the very least.
Yeah. Or you need a lot of generations of slave labor.
Still though, like even I guess explosives obviously existed forever.
I said that flippantly. I'd like to clarify. We've talked about before when we talked about the Great Pyramids episode of like sometimes it's mind-blowing to think that the only way to accomplish these insane feats of like human stuff over long periods of time was just generation after generation of day in and day out slave labor.
Is that documented? Like, I know that's disputed with the pyramids.
Which part? Whether or not it was actual slaves?
Yeah.
I guess-
I think it's safe to say, obviously, you need a huge labor force.
Yeah, whether or not it was
forced labor or not, I don't know how we would know because there's not written records of that stuff.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, I don't have, like, I can't say evidence-wise either way. But I just mean, like, a force of humanity that would be thrown at this quote-unquote problem or task or whatever.
Project.
Yeah. Nonstop.
And then we talked about it with Stonehenge, but, like, maybe it took 1,000 years.
Right, exactly.
Like, we don't know necessarily what the scale was on some of these other than they were, like, are you looking at more pictures?
Dude, I'm just...
Give this one a Google.
Mind blown.
This was a new one to me. Why I hadn't heard of this before, I don't know. I think...
Never seen it
I think
in my
part of
life.
it is that it wasn't really publicized until, like, the late 90s, and it wasn't opened up for study until 2008.
Wow.
It was declared a World Heritage Site in 2008
Wow.
by Saudi Arabia. And so I think there's just starting to be access to it for the first time in who knows how long. But yeah, 2,000 years ago. And I don't know, like, seeing, if I had seen this today and been told, like, this is being built now, I would have been shocked.
You'd have been like, holy shit, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With current technology and planning and designing and budgets, and I really can't get my head around how you would have possibly done this one.
Yeah.
Whereas with Stonehenge, like, I sort of get it. Like, the design, yes, it's aligned in specific ways and it's astronomical in nature. Like, that stuff is cool.
Yep.
But the physical design is pretty simple.
Yep.
Same thing with, like...
Yeah, I'm talking about rectangles. Building
like,
blocks.
Göbekli Tepe, like, yeah, there's stuff carved into it. It would have taken time. It would have taken some skill. But at the end of the day, like, they're pillars.
Right. It's not, the level of intricacy is nowhere near what this is.
Right. This, like, someone saw a cliff face and said, yeah, I'm going to build...
a geometric building with steps and piping and mantles and
windows and doors and
patterns.
columns and, yeah.
And I'm going to do it 30 feet into this rock face.
And it's going to be 200 feet tall.
This is fucked up, man.
And apparently we have, like, we kind of understand metal. Like,
Right.
What were tools like 2,000 years ago?
I don't know. I mean, I don't actually have any knowledge of what 2,000-year-old tools are, but they had to have been something to do this.
So this is one of the ones that gets me thinking, like, maybe there was more going on than we know about or have records of.
Yeah. You said 2,000 years ago these were being made?
So this is another one that was built sort of like in sections, and it was constructed over, like, I don't know, at least 100 years.
Yeah, there appears to be many. Like, one of the pictures just on one rock face that you can see from pretty far away, there's like 15 different ones.
Yeah.
Just
So
in
that-
one rock face.
Within this larger site, there are like 4 smaller sites. The largest of them was built between 0 and 100 AD. And then the oldest, they don't really know.
Sure.
Probably older than that,
Right.
but they're not sure about how much. Because I don't know how you can date stuff, because the rock it was carved out of is like millions of years old, probably. Or who knows. And then if you're just carving away pieces of a rock, there's no, like, carbon dating that can be done.
No, I mean...
You just have to date based on other artifacts near the location.
Well, if it is a tomb, you could date when the people inside died.
Right. But that's an estimate still. And then that doesn't necessarily say when it was built.
True.
I mean,
And that also implies that there are, in fact, some sort of like actual mummified bodies inside. I mean, these things look like they very well could have been emptied at some point. I mean, I would imagine grave robbers or whatever could have gotten to these over time. There's one picture from the inside where you can see almost like they look like bunks, like bunk shelving.
Like a mausoleum or something?
Yeah,
like
a little bit.
Like a family.
Like maybe multiple people were entombed inside of one of them.
Well, there are, aside from like the huge, really ornate tombs, there are like roughly 2,000 burial sites in this location.
Jesus.
So they're not all, 300-foot tall palaces, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically it was all built somewhere between like 0 to like somewhere 1st century AD. So 2,000-ish years ago.
Man, goddamn.
Yeah.
That shit cray. Mada'in Saleh?
I think it's Saleh.
Mada'in Saleh?
Yeah.
Shit.
There's a comma in there, so I think it's like Mada'in Saleh.
Mada'in Saleh?
Yeah.
Okay. Dope.
Yeah.
That shit's
that was
tight
a brand
as
new one
fuck.
for me.
I've never seen that before in my whole life.
I think that might bring us to Easter Island, by the way.
Oh, dippity-doo-dah. Should we take a quick pause and come back and rock Easter Island up?
Nah, fuck them. Let's go.
Actually, let's take a quick break because I gotta pee. Guys.
Welcome.
Yaga.
Tell me about big people's heads coming out of islands.
Our heads are falling off. They're not.
No, they're staying forever.
So to talk about the Moai of Easter Island, we got to talk about Easter Island first, because I think part of what makes the Moai so impressive is where they are located. What do you know about Easter Island?
It's an island.
Good start.
I don't think it's really that close to anything.
It's very far away from everything, actually.
Okay. There's some really big heads built along one of the coasts.
No, wait, you're getting too far. I mean the island itself.
But no, that's it. It's
okay.
Small and it's got big heads buried in the ground.
So Easter Island is about 60 square miles.
Okay.
So think about that. I mean, compare that.
Thinking about it.
Think about that size. Compare it to something that is familiar to you, and
sure.
And then think about that being over 2,000 miles off the coast of Chile. Chile is the closest continental country to Easter Island, and it's 2,000 miles into the ocean from Chile.
Okay.
So you're talking about almost.
Way the fuck out there.
Over half the width of the United States in mileage.
Yep.
In just straight into the ocean to find a 60 square mile island. So it's this tiny island very far away from everything. The closest island neighbor it has is about 1,300 miles away.
That's still pretty damn far.
So, continental 2,000, island 1,300. So there's nothing near it. In fact, the fact that there were ever people on Easter Island blows my fucking mind, to be frank. But what we know of Easter Island is that Polynesian land explorers in what they believe were like seafaring kayaks or canoes.
Damn, I would not want to take a kayak 2,000 miles across the ocean.
And here's what I don't really understand.
That sounds like a terrible time.
It sounds like a bummer, right? Because you got a timer as soon as you leave land.
You mean until you
die?
Till you run out of water?
Yeah, you run out of water, you run out of food.
Well, you could maybe catch food, but yeah, you got a limit on how long you can go before you got like 3 days without water.
Right. And how does anyone, we're talking about, over 1,000 years ago, they settled around somewhere between, we think, 800 AD and 1,000 AD.
Okay.
How are you navigating?
Stars.
How is anyone following you once you get there? Are they?
What?
Like, there's no way for you to be like, oh, now that we got here, we're going to sail back to wherever we came from. Or maybe not no way, but it ain't easy.
Sure. I think, obviously, people have known how to navigate the oceans for a long time.
Yes. I just think, like, from everything we know about navigating the oceans, people have generally been traveling in much larger vessels and finding much bigger bodies of land than this 60 square mile island that's kind of dead center in the middle of fucking nowhere in the ocean.
Yeah, it is, and we're assuming that it wasn't inhabited before that, or do we know that it wasn't?
The earliest sign of something related to a permanent settlement that we can carbon date is from like 800 AD-ish.
Because the more interesting question to me would be, why were you going there in the first place?
Well,
or how did you know it was there even?
Well,
like
so
navigating that seems possible to me. I don't know what the motivation would have been or how they would have even had that information.
Yeah, well, so there's an interesting Polynesian myth about a Polynesian king who had a dream about the piece of I can't remember what it was. It was like the island in the navel of the sea, and it was supposed to be like this island that was in the center of the ocean.
Okay.
And the lore of the finding of Rapa Nui, Easter Island, Rapa Nui is the Polynesian name for the island. It was renamed Easter Island when some white dude walked on it and said,
"Right,
I found a thing," even though it had been
this
found
is mine
a
now.
long time ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we can call it Rapa Nui. But the lore of Rapa Nui was that this sort of king's dream inspired the search for it, and that it was then found by Polynesian people.
So he just sent some people out in a kayak to most likely die?
I had a dream. There's a small piece of land out there. Go get it. What? Sorry, what?
No, thanks.
How far is it? Very. Okay.
Here's a kayak.
Yeah. I think the more...
Better hope it rains.
Yeah, fuck. Catch some water and don't fry by the time you get there. I think the more probable thing was that Polynesian explorers were looking for land and got there before they got where they were going. So they somehow...
That's a pretty far way to go without finding anything.
Right? But there's a possibility that there was enough back and forth where they actually ended up finding something in their backs and forths exploring, and they stayed instead of going by it and finding new people. So they settled Rapa Nui right around 800 to 1000.
Okay.
What we know is that whatever this initial clan of settlers was basically set up shop on what would have been a pretty lush island at the time. There's this extinct species of palm tree that was known to be on the island. They were like 50-foot tall palm trees with these like trunks that were like massive, like couldn't wrap your arms around the trunks. Palm trees.
Good for boat making.
Good for boat making. You know what?
Maybe.
You know what else they might have been good for? Rolling very
moving?
heavy rocks on top of. So the people of Rapa Nui, over many hundreds of years, started a process of creating what are known as the moai. And these are gigantic, again, stones.
How big are we talking?
So the biggest one that they found on the island is 72 feet long and weighs somewhere in the realm of 90 tons. So it's about 180,000 pounds of rock.
Okay.
I know, it's pretty mind-blowing. Now, that one was abandoned in its process. That one isn't one of the ones that was erected.
Okay. So that one was too big.
Yeah, they were like, oops, bit off more than we could chew on this one. But there are almost 1,000 of them on Rapa Nui, and they all range in size from like anywhere from like 15 feet tall to most of them are in like the 30 to 40 to 50 feet tall range, and they weigh many tons, like 40, 50, 60, 70 tons. So we're talking about like 100,000 pounds of stone every time there is a giant one of these. And there's over 1,000 of them that are spaced out mostly along the perimeter.
There are 1,000 of those?
900 last I saw the number was 903 have been documented.
Holy shit, I did not know that.
Yeah, because mostly what you see is like the picture where there's
30.
12 wide.
Yeah.
No, there's somewhere in the realm of, the estimates I've seen range from like 860 to 903, and I don't know if that means
That
like
is
at a
still
certain
at least
size cutoff.
10 times how
What you
many
thought
I
it
thought
was?
there were. Yeah.
Yeah, and they are actually spaced entirely around all of the perimeters of the island.
Where was that rock coming from?
So there's a quarry in the center of Rapa Nui that all of these came from. Rapa Nui is it's a volcanic island. So there are 3 volcanoes that made this island, which is why it's in the middle of fucking nowhere. 3 volcanoes came up, kind of built it as a volcanic island over time. The volcanoes died, got lush and populated, and then people found it.
Which is still crazy.
Still crazy.
That phenomenon alone is super bizarre to me.
Totally.
Like, there was just no life, and now, oops, tons of life.
Tons of life.
Palm
yeah.
trees where it used to be ocean.
Yeah, I mean, it probably took 150,000 years
whatever.
to happen, but yeah, it's still
pretty
impressive.
fucking weird.
Yeah, totally. But there's this specific kind of volcanic rock. It's called tuff, and
Okay.
I don't know much about it other than that's what it's called, and it's basically the type of rock that is created by multiple volcanic explosions over time.
Sure.
And in the world of rock, which I don't know a ton about, tuff is actually not so tough. Ting. It's very carvable, actually, is what it is. It's because it's volcanic rock. It's a little bit more porous, which actually makes it easier to.
It's softer.
Yeah, it's a little softer, so you can chisel and chip away at it more easily. So
Okay.
what they think is the Rapa Nui basically used harder rock to chip away and chisel at the softer rock to quarry these giant, like, elongated structures out of the ground and then move them.
Dude, I wouldn't know how to. I don't understand how people quarry rock in 2018.
Right. Dynamite.
You just blow it up.
I mean,
and then go pick it up.
I think, kind of.
Go find a cliff and blow it up, and then put it in the truck.
And then pick up the cliff. We made
Yeah.
a cliff. Yeah, I mean, from everything I've seen, there's some really cool documentaries about Easter Island. I highly recommend. There's one on Netflix I think it might be like Secrets of Easter Island or something like that.
Sounds
I'm
about
forgetting it right now, but just search for Easter Island on Netflix. It's pretty interesting. There's also a Nova episode about it, and there's also a Nat Geo
Nova's so good.
about the Moai and the Easter Island megaliths.
You know what I bet those dudes sound like?
Show me what you got.
The big heads?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure they do. 100%.
That's got to be what that's based on.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's God. If it's not, I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
The thing that's great. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do we know what the purpose of them was? I mean, if there was one.
Yeah. So the only one of the most interesting things about the Moai is that of the 900 that are on this 60 square mile island, all of them face into the island except for like 16 of them.
So it's the whole perimeter of the island, basically.
That's where most of them are structured.
Yeah.
You find them inland because most of them that are inland were probably being transferred to the perimeter of the island and somehow didn't make it, were abandoned. The history of the Rapa Nui people is really intense and kind of crazy, which is part of the Moai tradition. So, like, essentially, they we don't really know what happened to them, but we do know that they
got picked up.
Well, there are still people there, and many of them are descendants of the original Rapa Nui people that lived there, but we don't know how big the initial settling clan was. We do know that roughly at its max, we think the population of the island was around 15,000 people.
On 60 square miles?
On 60 square miles.
That's kind of dense.
It is pretty dense. But if you think about it as being kind of like a lush tropical island with fruits and vegetables and fish and all that kind of stuff, you can see how like a land like that would potentially sustain that amount of people. But the problem,
Yeah, maybe.
the problem with having more people is that when you need more people, you need more food. And when you need more food, you start to cut down trees because you need less trees so that you can have more agriculture.
You got the whole ocean, bro. There wasn't any good fishing.
Well, they did that too, but they also started growing things like, I think, like sweet potatoes and yams and things like that were like, carb-heavy foods that could feed more people. But when they did that, they started taking out more of the natural vegetation of the island, and they think that what happened was there's a guy who has I can't remember what his name is. He's an author, but he's got the whole ecocide concept. It's about how like civilizations die. It's the dude who wrote, I can't remember what the book is called. It's something similar to that.
There was a guy who wrote a book.
Hang on. This is one of those, I encountered this in my research and don't remember exactly what it was.
It's okay. Take your time. What are you Googling right now?
How civilizations die.
Oh, okay. I was like, guy
I can't remember.
with a book.
Anyway,
.com.
I hope somebody will correct us on the internets. But
I don't think you even gave them enough information to correct you.
This concept might be, the concept is called like ecocide, which is essentially when a civilization unintentionally uses their ecological environment to an extent with which it causes them to die. And the idea was basically that the people who lived on Rapa Nui continued to take down the trees to build more houses. They took down the trees to do more agriculture. They potentially took down the trees to move these giant statues further and further around the perimeter of the island. And then they basically destroyed the natural ecology of Rapa Nui in the process, which then caused potentially more famine and death.
So all that is happening, and it's still the priority to build 900 statues?
Still hauling over 1 million tons of rock to the perimeter of this island.
With, I'm assuming, manual labor, right? Because it was 1,000 years ago.
There's really no other option.
Requires more food and water.
Right. So the speaking of moving things, they think it's a possibility that they were rolling them on these like barrel-sized palm tree things to get them places. There's also a theory of them. There's some lore about calling them like the statues that walked, which is pretty interesting. They talk about basically erecting
like
them
back and forth.
Because some of the ones that were abandoned on their way to the perimeter actually had fatter bases than the ones that were actually had made it to the perimeter. And what some people think, some archaeologists think, is that the process that they used to get these out of the quarry and to the perimeter of the island was taking these ropes, right? So you have 3 teams of men, one team on the left side, one team on the right side, and one team behind it. And you basically erect the statue and then you start rocking it with the 2 teams on the left and right back and forth.
And you just get some momentum going.
And then you get the momentum going, and then you have the guys behind it almost let it tip over forward, but always prevent it from tipping over forward, so that as it rocks left and right, it goes about a 90, not even a 90, like a 45 degree turn and a 45 degree turn like each time you rock it. Yep. And that they basically just envision that what they did in this tough rock, which was porous and fell away, what they were saying was that essentially they carved them out so that their bases were bigger when they came out of the quarry, and then they rocked these fucking things for like 20 to 30 miles to get them to the perimeter of the fucking island.
Why?
Right. Yes.
What were you doing?
And as they went to the edge of the island, they lost stone mass from this heavy rocking. I mean, you're talking about, again, like 30 tons of stone on top of the bases until they got where they were and set them into place. So the why...
And then they were facing
inward, except
so
for
it wasn't even like to deter others,
right?
It wasn't like defensive or something.
Because that's when you look at them, the pictures of them are kind of intimidating. Like
I would go the other way. Fuck that.
They look intense.
Yeah.
They look really intense. And the crazy thing about them too, if you see some of the pictures, for a while we didn't actually know that they were anything other than heads. We thought that they were just heads that were buried in the ground. Right? Yeah, but they started excavating them in like the 80s. and realize that many of them are like 3 times the size of the head,
Right.
and that shifting soils and earthquakes, etc., have basically buried some of them, but that they're like 3 times taller than we thought they were. So you imagine one of those 70-foot tall motherfuckers on the edge of this island, like,
So I'm saying
hell no, I'm not running towards that.
right. Whoever lives there is obviously like a little crazy
Or like trying to
And-
intimidate people from coming in.
and real smart / technologically advanced / strong / there are a lot of them.
Totally.
Like that communicates a lot
Totally.
in a little.
And absolutely, yeah, that's really well said. And I think one of the craziest things for me too about Rapa Nui is like,
Why would you face them out? That doesn't make sense.
well, and why are only some of them facing out?
Look at my butt.
We don't even like you. You get the silent treatment. They there's also a kind of one of the theories about them is that they are stone representations of like deified ancestors. That essentially the most deified of the ancestors of the Rapa Nui people got moai created as emblems of them, and then they were put on the perimeter as a looking in shield. You know, you've got like the ancestors are all around us, looking in towards us and protecting us in that way. So less of a outward looking intimidate those people, and more of a looking inward and protecting us here on our small 60-kilometer island.
Okay. That sort of makes sense.
But again, like, are you not good at 20 or 50 or 100 or 300? You
Right.
made 1,000 of these fucking things?
To the point where you almost wiped yourself out?
They say they believe that at its lowest population. So the other thing that happened was they got discovered by the Europeans, who in their own right brought disease
Dicks.
to the Rapa Nui people. That, you know, I mean, it's a completely isolated ecological
Right,
system.
right.
So as soon as someone else, quote unquote, discovers it, they're
Didn't
bringing
know about such things then.
right. They believe that the Rapa Nui people were wiped down to close to 200 people at one point.
From
Off of
from upwards of 1,500.
15,000 was
15. You said 15,000?
15,000 was the maximum amount of people on
Fuck,
the
I
island
thought you
at
said
one time.
1,500, and I
No,
thought that was a
no.
lot.
No, right
Holy
now,
shit.
the population of Rapa Nui Easter Island is right around 6,000 people. It's an annexed island of Chile now, and there are people that live there. There's a tourism industry, obviously, because of these fucking insane, incredible
But it's
megaliths.
2,000 miles off the coast of Chile?
Yeah, it's real expensive to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have
Can
an
you-
airport,
You can fly? Okay.
Yeah.
You got to take like a little private jet
a
guy?
little puddle jumper.
That's not a short flight, though. 2,000 miles
Off of
over
Chile?
open ocean?
Hell no. It sounds like a fucking nightmare. Oh, God. It sounds like my personal fucking hell. Take this small 14-person airplane over fucking bumpy ocean water and hope you don't miss the teeny tiny fucking eraser-sized island.
Ugh. And also, you owe us $5,000.
Yeah, and also it's $5,000 to get here. The moai are absolutely fascinating to me, man. I could talk about them for an hour. I think it's one of the most incredible versions of the megalith thing. These giant faces, like, protecting the island. There's people who have done all kinds of intense study of the moai too, about how the carvings evolved over time, how the older ones are more human in their face shapes and creations, while the more recent ones, over the hundreds and hundreds of years they were carving these, started to look more abstract and kind of strange. And then also
They went Picasso on it.
a little bit. And then
They
even
discovered cubism halfway through.
somebody just like mailed them a Picasso painting and they were like, nice, let's try that. There's an interesting take on some of the even newer ones were made out of wood, and they were smaller and more gaunt. And they think that actually what happened was, as the people on the island reduced, there wasn't enough people to go through the process of creating the stone ones anymore. So they started carving them out of wood and making them smaller, but also more gaunt, because they were going through things like famine and death and things like that. So they were being more representative of the actual sort of decline of the civilization that they were intended to represent.
Damn. What a tradition to have, man.
Yeah.
What do we know what the total amount of time over which these were created is?
I had here, let's see. Hang on one sec. I know that
Roughly.
Yeah,
We're talking like a couple hundred years.
well, we know that they were sort of basically we know that they were settled between 800 and like 1000 AD, and we think most of the creation happened between like 1000 to like 1200 to like 1500 1600.
Okay. So like
Like
several hundred years.
yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere like 300 to 500 year give or take on either side of like
many
the
generations.
1250 to 500. Yeah, many generations.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And strangely, so if you've seen the buried ones are buried like we talked about for shifting soil. If you've seen the ones that are standing up and aligned in a row, that's actually happened because a lot of preservation groups have stood them back up, because in the 1800s, all of the statues, all of the Moai statues on Rapa Nui had fallen over. None of them were actually vertical on the island anymore.
Except the ones that had been buried?
Yes, except the ones that have been buried. So there are
Just naturally? Or
there are Rapa Nui folklore stories again about the shaking of the earth, and they think that there's a possibility
earthquake.
that ocean earthquakes, and especially if you're on a historically volcanic property, there's got to be
there's probably a
fault lines
yeah.
and all that stuff. So they think it's possible that a bad enough earthquake actually knocked over most of the statues at some point. But
Wait,
there's
you said that happened when? Or
we don't know.
Oh,
We
they
just
noticed in.
We
okay,
just know
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
they were when they were getting visited by the Europeans in like the late 1700s and early 1800s, etc. There was documentation of these that came back from the European explorers that said when we went, there were these fucking crazy giant statues and they were all on their sides essentially.
And we didn't ask anybody why they didn't put them back up.
I mean, I don't know. I would imagine at that point, if you're down on your population, you didn't have the manpower to do what you had once done.
Shit's too heavy. You want to help?
Yeah. Hey guys.
No. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
All right, one more quick one
Yeah.
because this episode's already late and now it's running long. Also,
Hey, you guys don't care.
it'll be worth it. You know about the Georgia guys? Hey Ryan,
Georgia.
I apologize.
do you know about the Georgia Guidestones?
Oh no,
That's an important addition, by the way.
I apologize.
so good.
It's gonna get a lot of use.
We're gonna
yeah.
We fuck up pretty much persistently,
Constantly.
so we're gonna
Yeah,
need that.
nonstop. The Georgia Guidestones. I'll try and make this quick. It's the most recent megalith I could find. It was erected in 1981 in Elbert County, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta.
1981.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's a set of stone pillars
Yep.
with one. So they're vertical pillars, and there's one resting on top of the center of, I think, 4 pillars. So it's like 4 facing sort of like perpendicular to each other and then one resting flat on top.
Okay.
And they have these 10 guidelines, sort of like a modern 10 commandments carved into them in various languages. So that it's in 8 modern languages. And then
Sounds kind of creepy.
it is. There's a shorter version of it inscribed in 4 ancient languages,
Okay.
like cuneiform and shit.
Ooh.
So,
Somebody trying to call back the ancients with this thing?
well,
or?
there are a lot of weird theories about what's going on with this.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to know who spent this money.
Yep. I'm gonna read you the 10 engravings first. Number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature.
Just wanted to tell whoever made that in 1981 that was no longer we'd already passed that
Right.
in 1981.
We got a real new world order thing going right off the bat.
Oh, so I love the guy who like the Earth's population is in the many billions, and he's like,
Most of you got to go.
number 1, kill a bunch of these people.
Well,
Okay, so this is
I
what
think that may have been where they were going.
Interessante.
Number 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. So now we also have a strong eugenics angle.
Yikes.
Yep, number 1 and 2.
Georgia, get your shit. Come get your mans, Georgia.
Number 3, unite humanity with a living new language. We're calming down a little bit with number 3.
I mean, I was going to say.
We just need to be able to talk to each other.
Yeah.
We need like the internet, for example.
I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Number 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason.
Sounds very biblical. Don't fully understand it.
Yeah, me either. 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Okay.
Fair laws and just courts.
Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court.
Back to the New World Order shit.
Except like let nations be. Like don't interfere with others, and if you got a problem, we got a place where you can go work it out.
I guess, but
I don't
it's
know.
also the whole like justice for the world served through one global.
Yes, for sure.
You know.
Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. So now we got like a weird anti-government thing going on.
Yep.
Number 8, balance personal rights with social duties. No,
Oh, dude, that one's pretty bad. Balance personal rights with social duties is definitely like, hey, sometimes you could do what you want, but sometimes you're fucking doing it for the rest of us.
Right. There are a lot of weird, like, I don't know, dystopian angles to this shit. Number 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite.
Non-specific and strange.
Number 10, be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature, leave room for nature.
Get the fuck out.
So, yeah, they're not real inviting. When you open,
To say the least.
when you open with 80% of you need to die, or like maybe best case scenario, because it's stone and it's meant to last forever, basically. Maybe this is a like, and we're in the 70s and 80s. Maybe this is like a Cold War. If we get nuked and things go real badly, here's a good way to start over.
Interesting.
And right now in the 80s, overpopulation is a problem. So if we are starting over, let's try and keep this shit down.
That's actually really interesting because I thought about it so much more as like a prescriptive, this is what needs to change right now, but it's way...
I don't think it's meant for 1980. I think it's meant for future.
But it's actually way less like intense and creepy if you look at it as like a...
It's still not great.
It's not great.
It's less horrible.
It's less horrifying if it's not like a fix this shit by killing lots of people. It's more so like, if we got to do it again, here are some recommendations that I personally would think would make things go a little smoother.
Here are some places we fucked up the first time.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what it is. The designer and the exact meaning are unknown because it was built and financed anonymously.
How is that possible?
So
Is it on private land?
Yes, in 79, a guy using the pseudonym Robert C. Christian, or R.C. Christian, which some people think
Is a pseudonym with Christian intentions?
or implies that the Rosicrucians were involved. That it might be some secret society shit. He approached a granite company in Alberton, I guess it's a city in Albert County, on behalf of, quote, a small group of loyal Americans, which doesn't make this sound any
less cult-like?
and commissioned them to build this thing. So he gave them plans and he gave them money and said, here, can you please go build this for us? He explained that the stones would function as a compass, calendar, and clock, and should be capable of withstanding catastrophic events. So like some of the other megalithic sites, they're aligned astronomically, and certain parts of it line up with the solstices and stuff. The guy who owned the company at the time and took this project said he assumed that Christian was, quote, a nut, and that the company had been taken, that this was like some sort of prank, right? And that this guy didn't actually have the money or the land to do this.
To execute on his wild idea.
So he gave him a quote that was like
Through the
5
moon.
times what it would actually cost. And the dude just said, okay,
Deal.
and cut him a check. Wow. So they overcharged him like 500%. And then
Did he say what that number is?
I couldn't find it.
Damn, I want to know that really bad. Did you say how tall it is? I just pulled up a picture right now.
I don't know exactly. I would guess they're in the like
Oh, it's not.
15-ish feet range.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's actually not that. I just saw
12 to 15.
one with a person in front of it. It's yeah,
2 or 3 people tall, maybe.
I would say like maybe 20,
15 to 20, yeah.
Actually, with the top stone that rests on top of the other 4 that you were talking about, maybe 25. But yeah, it's not
No.
insanely big,
No.
but it's pretty big.
So once the check cleared, they actually built this thing. And once they got the permit, because R.C. Christian or whoever he represented also bought this land that they built it on. He bought, it was like, I don't know, several acres of land from a farmer in the area. And then
And he's
once,
just like,
once they finished the project, they then donated it and the land to the county.
So this
So
is
they
public.
bought it. They bought it in order to be able to build on it, and then donated it back and made it public land.
So it can't really be like bought or taken down.
I guess the county could decide to take it down.
But if it's generally inoffensive enough to not be,
Right. They would probably have to, like, I don't know, city council or whoever would have to vote on it.
as it being like a public nuisance or some shit like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, if people were like gathering there and sacrificing each other or something, you could probably
Each other.
make a good case for getting rid of it.
You guys want to go sacrifice each other tonight? It's all right, let's do it.
Steve's turn.
Steve's turn. I got sacrificed last week. Dude, weird.
Yeah, and then there's a little like there's a inset in the ground next to it that has additional information, like the specific. Actually, you could find the exact heights, because on this other engraving it says the exact size of the stones and their alignments and like what they
Whoa.
correlate to.
Oh, got it. As like a.
Well, which seems kind of weird, because like why
as in,
would you
like,
care?
Why do we know that?
Yeah, which has led other people to think that there's information encoded in that somehow. That the sizes or like angles of certain aspects actually have other information encoded in them. It also says that there's a time capsule buried somewhere on the site,
Ooh, cool.
but it doesn't say anything about like when
Where
it should be
or what
opened
to-
or where it is, and it's unsure if there actually is one buried on
maybe
site.
maybe another one of those like if it all goes to heck.
Yeah, right. And then more recently, I think like in 2012 or 13,
Yep.
a cube section was cut out of one of the stones
Why?
and replaced with a cube that had carved on each side the letters MM, JAM, the number 20, 14, 8, and 16, like inscribed on each of the 6 sides of this cube.
What?
So they cut out a piece of one of the big pillars
What?
and then replaced it with this other cube that had letters or numbers inscribed on each side of it.
When did this happen?
Like within the last 5 or 10 years.
Why?
Like mid 2010s.
Who said that should be a thing that should happen?
Don't know. And then other people got
What?
Yeah.
Dude, wait, that's fucking way weirder than the initial one.
Yes. And
Especially
then-
if it's donated to public, like a public thing and on public land.
And then the city just decided that the best thing to do with that cube was to destroy it. So they took it out and broke it and threw it away.
the one that had gotten put back into it?
Yeah, the cube with like the letters and numbers engraved on it. They took it out and destroyed it, and now there's just an empty spot there.
What the? This is fucking weird.
It's
dog.
really weird,
This
man.
is very fucking
It's
weird.
really
dog.
weird. And there are some intentional, well, we're assuming intentional misspellings engraved in it. And some people have hypothesized that maybe some of the writings actually are a code.
Oh, like it's misspelled because
it
misspellings
fits
contribute to
whatever
something else?
cipher there is going on, or it's
What?
was it an anagram, right? That's when you rearrange the letters to spell something else?
Yes.
Might be an anagram for something else. So like it says RC Christian and then in parentheses a pseudonym instead of pseudonym. So like maybe they're just dumb. But if you get to the point of engraving something in stone, you think you would spell check it.
Also,
Or the person
pseudonym and pseudonym are close enough where, like, couldn't you just, like, put the M in on the N and then put the N after the M?
Or like whoever was engraving it, don't you think they would have noticed and been like, oh, he probably meant M?
Yeah.
It sounds like they intentionally would have had to do that for it to not have gotten corrected at some point.
Right.
So there are all sorts of weird theories about between the text itself and then also the proportions and alignment and then this weird cube thing that there must be some sort of extra encoded information in this structure.
19 and a quarter feet in height.
There we go. We settled on 20. That was a pretty good guess.
Yeah, 17 and a third feet in width, diameter of 65 feet, and an overall weight of 951 cubic feet of real granite is 237,746 pounds of stone.
Like, why would they tell you that?
That's actually on the...
That's what I'm saying. They engraved that into a separate slab at the site.
At the site to, like, tell you what it is.
Why would that... I mean, I guess maybe just like, isn't this cool? Look how big this thing is. But
I mean, it does, like, add to the prestige of it or, like the impressiveness.
But then they also gave a specific number.
What do
You wouldn't say like over this, or this many tons or something. It's like exactly this many pounds.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know. You might have just done the calculation.
The whole thing is just fucking bizarre, man.
It's fucking bizarre. Okay, so
and then you
go
would
ahead.
think that if somebody, I don't know how much money it costs, but between the land and the materials and the labor, we got to be talking six figures.
I was gonna say, well into six figures.
Yeah.
I was gonna say closer to $1 million,
Probably.
and especially if he
in the 70s, late 70s.
Yeah, but if
I
he
don't know.
5x charged for a project like this,
Yeah. The land might have been super cheap. You got random Georgia farmland in the 70s.
it's very. I'm looking at the Google Street View of where this thing is. It's super
way
fucking
out there.
rural.
Yeah. You probably could have gotten, I think it's only like 5 acres or something. So it probably didn't cost that much.
Yeah.
But like, regardless, you're looking at six figures in the late 70s. There's no record of where that money came from or who it came from, or like there's just one guy who
from the Sudan.
right, just
Sudan.
one guy, and then you would have had to do this in person. So then
Which part?
All of
The
it.
building, you mean?
Yeah, and like you couldn't have placed this order must have been done in person, right? The payment must have been done in person.
I mean, not necessarily. You could have corresponded via mail.
You write them and you mail them a check.
I mean, if somebody really wanted to be weird and like quiet about it, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
And then just no one bothered to like ever look into where that came from, and now it's too late. It just seems like with that much money changing hands, there would be some record that would ultimately go back to someone.
no, I think you're right. But also, though, think about it. Like, we didn't have the internet, so paper trail.
But like,
I don't know.
if I'm that business and I quote a guy whatever 5 times my normal rate is, like a big amount of money, I'm not going to go to the bank and be like, is this a real check?
Yeah, right.
Can you?
Yeah, you got to cash it eventually.
Can you guys look into this for me before I commit like to purchasing this material and to having my team go out and build this thing?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely cash that.
You got to do a little bit of research, right?
But there's also like, I mean, there's lawyers, like that could have all been done through a lawyer, through a trust, and that never has to be revealed. That's like under legal obligation to not. You could pay it out of a lawyer's fund. I mean, I don't know. There's ways around that stuff to like really, if you really wanted to make something secret, you could.
But then why?
Because
What the hell were they doing?
So that's actually a really perfect segue to like something that we've brought up a handful of times throughout all of these stories. And like there are many more, by the way.
Yeah, there are hundreds.
Like many more.
Yeah.
We could do a 10-parter on this. Why? All of this, why? What is achieved by, I mean, they are impressive. Don't get me wrong. I'm literally impressed by all of these things. Even the weird Georgia one that like kind of makes me feel weird. It's still an impressive feat of construction and creation.
I think with that one, the best answer is probably a combination of some secret society type of group and Cold War nuclear paranoia weirdness.
Sure. I
Like
can
the very real threat of being nuked and having to kind of start over.
I can see that.
I don't know. I still wouldn't throw a couple $100,000 at it, but
Right.
if I'm some weird conglomeration of rich people that have some time on their hands, maybe I would. I don't know.
But I guess like the bigger why, why these like massive stone, like, what?
Because we pay attention to them.
I guess.
That's the whole point, right? There are smaller ones too, though.
There are smaller ones.
Like, what's the little desert Stonehenge? Pumapunku? Is that the one?
I don't know.
I think
Machu
that's
Picchu?
the one. No. That's
Well,
not.
Machu Picchu is
that's
impressive
not
in its
in a
own
desert
right,
or
but-
small, though.
No.
That's in Peru. Yeah, I think it's Pumapunku. It's like a similar alignment and style to Stonehenge, but the stones are like a foot to 2 feet tall.
Is it in Scotland?
No, it's in the desert.
You said desert? Oh, I missed that part.
like 4 times.
It's because I'm looking at the Stonehenge photo and I'm like, is it by
I think it's in northern Africa somewhere.
Okay.
But like big stone things, they're going to be around forever, and they're going to be noticeable on a landscape. I mean,
Yeah.
usually they're in a location where there's not much around them. They
So they
appeared to be
attract
a
attention.
destination, or
Yeah.
at least they will stand out,
Yeah.
and then they're going to last forever.
I guess, yeah. I just like I look at Stonehenge and I'm like, why put the big rock on top of the other big rocks?
I mean, look at some of the stuff we do now.
But do we do anything really like this anymore outside of like our skyscrapers?
I was going to say that first. Like, we build buildings just to be bigger than other buildings.
True.
There are a lot of things that we spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort on. Like, how many people have, in the course of history, have died constructing something?
Definitely. I think that the difference for me is like in the modern era, our version of megalithic structures always have a more obvious functional purpose.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do they?
Well, name one that doesn't. I mean,
What
like,
does the Eiffel Tower do?
well, the Eiffel Tower is like an observation platform and like an art piece.
An art piece counts as a real function?
I
That's
mean,
a stretch.
I guess, but I mean, like, I don't know. I guess
By that logic, Stonehenge is the same, if not more so, because at least it had some astronomical calendar type function.
I suppose that's true. I guess the
Okay.
Eiffel Tower is a pretty good example.
Topical. Any fucking structure in Las Vegas. That stuff is big to be big.
Yeah, but everything in Vegas is like a hotel. Like people live there and stay there, and
but you could make a hotel that doesn't look like those, and that doesn't have a replica of the fucking Eiffel Tower outside of it.
yeah, you certainly could, and that's why
It's a testament to like, look at this shit that we can do.
right. But like then go to like the go to the Easter Island. Like the Moai don't have that same look what we can do. Like
How would we know though? We have no context for that.
we don't, but it doesn't feel like a flex when you're on a 2,000 mile away island on a 60 square foot thing that you think or 60 square mile thing that you're the only people who live on.
We don't
Like,
know
that
the
feels
audience
much
though.
less like
Maybe the audience was their ancestors or a god or
right.
instead of each other
Right.
or other people.
It's a very, I guess the long and short of it in my head is it's a very interesting reach towards significance. Like all of these are trying to create some sense of longevity and significance in a way that like lasts, and also in a way like we talked about where like spending generation after generation to work on this thing. It's a commitment to significance that I feel like our society has lost contemporarily.
Oh, absolutely. And it like, with the Egyptians, for example.
Yeah.
Would there be people over generations and generations studying Egypt and Egyptian culture if not for the things they had built?
What they've done? Yeah, absolutely not.
And that same with like any of these cultures. Would we be talking about Easter Island if not for the things that they built?
Right.
Would we be talking about the people who built them if they hadn't built them?
Right.
No.
Right.
And
It's a reach towards significance.
Yeah, and it also is a documentation of
We were here.
who you are and what you were about.
Yeah.
Here is our culture in a physical object.
Yeah. And the concept of knowing, it's like what's there's a truism, like an old proverb that's like the measure of a wise man is one who plants the seed of a tree whose shade he knows he will not sit in. Like that concept of knowing that you will not physically be present to receive the recognition.
Dude, that is totally fucking gone from our culture these days.
Yeah. You will not be present to receive the recognition or the significance that you seek in the execution of something.
Right.
But you do that thing anyway, knowing that it will be significant to someone else and you will not reap a reward for it.
Yeah.
But it will matter because it will matter to someone else later on.
Right. Yeah, we have lost that concept for sure.
I think so. And I think too, like we comically kind of talked about it with a hard drive. How long does a hard drive last? Like everything that we make now is digitized. Right.
Somebody's going to be trying to figure out what the Washington Monument is a couple thousand years from now, though.
Right. And nobody's going to hear a single one of our songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which like all these other cultures probably had all the, art and music and language and stories and all the other stuff too. But like it's a lot harder to make that last unless you ingrain it in something else that will
last forever.
We gotta go, dude. This is way late and way long.
These were the OG artists, man. Maybe we need to stop making music and we need to start making megalithic structures. We'll last for eternity, bro.
Yeah, dog.
All right. Hi at whatifpodcast.com. Keep sending emails. You guys have been sending great emails. We love you at whatifpod on everything. Send us show suggestions. And we've been getting a lot of really nice iTunes reviews. I haven't checked the iTunes reviews in a while. And people left some really nice ones.
I haven't looked either.
If you guys want to leave us an iTunes review, that'd be great. We talked about doing another live episode on the Facebook Live once we hit 200 reviews.
Yeah.
And we're almost there. So if you guys want to leave an iTunes review, that helps us out a lot. And we're going to do another Facebook Live episode soon. So thank you guys a lot. And we love you. And we'll see you soon.
Peace.
Bye.
We'll be back next week with another episode of the What If Podcast. Learn more at www.whatifpodcast.com.